Chapter 6. After school, Marissa leafed through a worn copy of Romeo and Juliet and was smart enough to figure out that neither she nor Renee could play the leads, though she had a faint inkling that perhaps they could bring a new angle to those roles. After all, couldn't Juliet be fat and Romeo skinny? And weren't they in love? They were straddling a bench under a tree that had given up all its leaves. The school campus was nearly empty. Somewhere a janitor was vacuuming a classroom. Somewhere kids were playing football on a brownish field. I could be a really, really skinny Romeo, Renee remarked. He handed Marissa a stick of gum. Then I'm Juliet. Marissa unwrapped the gum from its silvery foil and folded it into her mouth. Thanks for the gum, Romeo. She turned her attention momentarily to a lone skateboarder riding halfway up a cement wall nicked with wheel skids. The gum is from my trick-or-treat candy. Marissa shoved him. Get out of here. You didn't go trick-or-treating. Anyway, Halloween ain't for another week. It's from my last year's stash. Marissa rolled the gun into the carpet of her tongue and was ready to deposit it into her hand when Renee said, Just kidding. What's your mother like? Marissa asked. Tall and kind of strict. He chewed his gum loudly. What's yours like? Short and sometimes really angry about things. In truth, her mother had softened. She was glad about her daughter's new school, though Marissa had told her nothing about Renee. What's your dad like? Short, Renee answered, but my parents are divorced. He looked into the distance as if his father was somewhere far away, and he was trying to catch a glimpse of him. Marissa sighed and wished she hadn't asked the question. They laced their hands together and wiggled their fingers. What about the play? Marissa asked. I don't know any of these characters. She ran down the cast. Mercutio, Aeschylus, Benvolio, nurse. Marissa tapped the word nurse. I'll play the nurse. Like you said earlier, I could play a person helping other people. Marissa, it's not like a nurse. This character is sort of like a babysitter. Marissa wrinkled her forehead, confused. In the play, the nurse is Juliet's helper. You know, like someone who helps her dress and stuff. She's like a confidant. Where did you learn to talk like that? Marissa asked. I never use words like that one you said. The word is confidant. It means someone who tell your innermost thoughts to without worrying. What you tell that person is kept between you two. Oh, so if I tell you something really private, you'll keep it to yourself? That's right. Renee tapped the toe of his shoe. So what are you going to tell me? I'm not going to tell you anything. You'll tell somebody in your chess club. I won't. I'm your confidant. He made a large, swooping crossing motion across his heart. His Adam's apple rode up and down as he waited for her to deliver a secret. So what is it? Right then, the skateboarder rolled back, hands in his pockets, and taunted, Hey, doofus. Marissa's fist clutched. What did you say? She pulled her leg over the bench like she was getting off a horse, ready to smack him one. The skateboarder sailed away, shirt-tail flapping. His greenish hair was like a horn on the top of his head. He's a pimply gway. Her chest was heaving. He was aware that her new classmates were sizing the two of them up, and earlier in the week she had heard snickers when they had passed by together in the hallway. But this was the first direct verbal strike. What is it to him, that ugly fool? I don't care, Renee said. So what's your secret? Marissa breathed in and out several times so she calmed herself. She assembled nice thoughts and, nervously turning the ring in her thumb, and announced, Well, Mr. Confidence, I have never had a beso laid on me. What? A kiss, homeboy? You mean your grandmother never kissed you? No, not like that. You know what I mean. She closed her eyes and waited for Renee to bring his face towards her. She waited and waited, then peeked through the shadows of her eyelashes. Her eyes sprang open. Renee was no longer next to her. From the corner of her eye, she could see the skateboarder who had taunted Renee. He was on his back, his legs fanning in and out, hurt by a spill. He meant nothing to her. What are you doing? She called to Renee, who was at a nearby trash can. Getting rid of my chewing gum, he hollered in return as he tried to shake the gum into the trash can. The gum was stuck to his fingers. Oh, he's such a nerd, she thought, then closed her eyes and waited for him to return. Renee tasted of juicy fruit when Marissa finally got her first beso. The auditorium was dark and the students were half lit in the stage lights. Marissa's stomach turned nervously. She reviewed the students, one she recognized from her English class, and then the director who had his eyeglasses sitting on his forehead. His shirt cuffs were rolled up. His belly bounced when he took a long step, demonstrating inaction. I don't know, Marissa said nervously. Her feet seemed to stick to the floor. Come on, Renee begged, and hooked his arm into hers. They read for parts, and they were assigned to be in the chorus. The director, Mr. Mitchell, soothed them by saying they were stupendous actors, but singing voices were also needed. But I can't sing, Marissa whined to Renee. You could try whisper singing, Renee suggested. And there's so many of us that if we sound really bad, no one will notice. He took Marissa's hands into his. You were great up there. They should have given you a speaking part. Get out of here. Giggling, Marissa unlaced her fingers from his hand. I was terrible, and you know it. She had been asked to read lines. She was playing Juliet's mother, and she fumbled the ancient words. Finally slapping the book against her thigh and saying to the drama coach, People don't talk like this. Holding her book up to her face to hide her embarrassed laughter, Marissa moved stage left while the director countered, Oh no, you did very, very well. No, really, we could practice singing. I'm going to practice in the shower, Renee then asked. So how do I carry myself? So how did I carry myself, she pondered. For a moment, Marissa assumed that she was quoting Shakespeare because he sounded, what was that word? Theatrical. He sounded English. What do you mean? In my audition. Renee had read the part of Mercutio. You were right. I was tight. I was that good. Renee beamed and scratched his knees absently. I have something to confess, Marissa. Marissa snuggled up to him. What, buddy boy? She could smell his breath, flavored with chewing gum. Well, you may not believe this, but I'm not really what you think I am. He flirted by blinking his eyelashes. What? Marissa wanted to know everything about her first boyfriend, to delve into his secrets. He was gangly and smart. He had an odd laugh. But what wheels turned inside his head? I'm not really a nerd. Marissa covered her mouth with her hand. Laughing, she slapped his shoulder. Yeah, you are. No, really, I'm very Shakespearean. Very manly. Marissa laughed. Renee bent over and through the fingers covering his mouth, honked out a funny duck-like laugh. But Marissa was convinced that she was a nerd when he rode his bike to the car wash, sponsored by her old high school that weekend. It was mid-morning and the car wash was going poorly. Only 3 cars had been washed and vacuumed. And the principal's car, a large Buick, was nasty with fingerprints all over the window and the ashtray filled with cigarette butts. He hadn't bothered to clean it up even a little bit. Renee was holding his hand over his nose as he rode up. What happened? Marissa thought. That he was going to pull his hand away from his face and reveal a fake nose and possibly a set of vampire teeth. But when he did, he saw a rivulet of blood. I fell off my bike, he explained as he rolled his bicycle toward the chain-link fence near the tennis courts. Someone jumped you, huh? She scanned the street. One of the girls from Washington approached them. Who's he? Without answering, Marissa led Renee to the curb, where he sat, head back, the blood staining his throat. A coin of blood fell and splashed into his wrist. How did it happen? She asked again, this time sternly. Renee shrugged. Marissa had got into fights, had won some and lost others. One of the losses showed in a faint jagged scar under her chin, which at night in bed she would trace with her fingers. She'd bloody noses and had her own nose blossom with blood from roundhouse punches. It didn't matter to her. Life, as she had discovered so far, was mostly knocks and punches. But she felt rudely offended that her boyfriend, he was her boyfriend, wasn't he? Would be smacked around. He was so sweet. Who would hurt him? Right then Roberto showed up, driving his parents' car. Marissa watched him emerge from the car, hugging friends and giving peace signs to those who were too cool to step forward. He jumped when someone sprayed him with a hose. Wait here, she instructed Renee. She got up and approached Roberto. Hey, girl, Roberto greeted. Hey yourself, she's not here. Roberto slammed the car door. Who? He asked, owl-like. You know who. She stared at him until he looked over her shoulder and sneered at Renee, who was standing up. I'm going to have to smack that Swanson again, he said. Marissa bristled. So it was you who hurt Renee? Roberta gave a rat-like smile. Ah, I was just playing with him. You mean like this? Marissa hauled off a punch to his shaved temple and a second punch that brought a flow of blood from his mouth. Even though he was an 11th grader, Roberta wasn't that big. A little taller than she, and she had an arm wrestle before and knew what he could do. I don't want to hurt you, he backed up, holding his lip. You're a girl. Some girls wet from being sprayed with the hose by boys pulled Marissa away. I had to do it because he didn't want to tutor me no more. You're hella freaky, so what? He backpedaled when Marissa, like a bull, started toward him. He shoved her with a straight arm and struck her in the face with the heel of his palm. You ain't gonna hurt me, she bellowed, but she sensed the taste of blood that had caught her lip. More girls pulled Marissa away, a loop of blood flying from her face. She stood breathing hard and hands shaking from the rush of adrenaline. By then, Renee was at her side, pulling on her arm and begging, Come on, let's go, to Roberto, who yelled. You better not hit her again. They left the high school car wash, walking up the street, both feeling their injuries. He's the Swanson, not you, Marissa growled. My ex-school's stupid. You have seen the principal's car. Nasty. Violence doesn't get you anywhere, Renee commented. Marissa mumbled for him to be quiet. If he touches you like that again, I'm going to hit him back, Renee blubbered. You just said you're against violence. That's because I usually get beat up, but I don't care anymore. Marissa hooked her arm in his. We're messed up. Your nose is all red. They continued down the street, kicking through the fall leaves. Renee stopped and patted the bar of his bicycle. Get on. Marissa hopped onto the bar and Renee straddled the bike, gripping the handlebars tightly. He kicked off, straining as he tried to pick up speed. He was pedaling for his girl, and Marissa was touched by his courage. With the two of them, the bicycle could crash to the asphalt street and rough them up even more. Could they stand two embarrassments in the span of 10 minutes? Chapter 7. Marissa fabricated a story of how she had hit her face in the shower nozzle. Her uncle Pedro, a small man no taller than a boy, had done the modeling on the bathroom several years ago and assumed everyone was his height. The nozzle was positioned low. Marissa vowed to stop fighting. She would stand by her nerdy boyfriend, and learn to play chess, Renee's favorite pastime. She would come clean about her new life and learn chess in the presence of her mother and father. Renee, only slightly scared of meeting her parents, biked over on Sunday afternoon with the chessboard and pieces rattling in his backpack. Marissa's mother had been ready to go shopping when she opened the door to a young man who, would later tell Marissa, resembled a clean-cut young religious type going door to door handing out pamphlets. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Renee Torres, a classmate of Marissa's. He extended a hand and asked permission to leave his bike on the porch. Of course, she remarked, without looking at the bike leaning on the rail. She let Renee pass, holding the door open for him. Who is this skinny boy? Her face was asking. Marissa's father muted the television just as the Raiders, down 3 points, were attempting a 48-yard field goal. He stood up to shake hands with Renee. Don't let us disturb you, sir, Renee said. We're going to play chess. Her mother and father gawked. Was this boy here to court her daughter? Why did the boy have a red nose? Did it have anything to do with her daughter's cut lip? Mom, Marissa called, embarrassed by her mother's jaw hanging open. What? She asked. You're staring. Her mother's gawk reshaped itself into a smile. I guess I am. Her mother clipped away into the kitchen where Marissa figured she was leaning against the sink, pondering the meaning of the boy showing up at their door. They played on the table in the den. Marissa's mother brought them cookies and milk, and her father, hiking up his pants, would enter the den periodically to report on the score between the Raiders and the Broncos. I can't believe my dad, Marissa muttered. Her father had left the television muted so that he could hear them. He'd given up his Sunday football to eavesdrop. Marissa could make out her mother tiptoeing from room to room. She, too, was trying to listen. You're concerned for your safety, Renee said. He moved a bishop and took a pawn from Marissa. I might maul you any second. Marissa wagged her hand. No way, homeboy. That was the first fight in my entire life, Renee moved his queen. How did I do? That wasn't your first fight. You lie, Marissa exclaimed. She remembered fighting in a kindergarten when she had an argument over a red crayon. You must have had another one. I explained I'm against violence. And why is that, you might ask? Marissa remembered very clearly. Because you usually get beat up. Her hand crept over Renee's like a tarantula. She told him that her parents were funny, the way they were worrying about her. She giggled and moved her bishop 2 spaces. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I can do what I want. This is my house. Renee slid his rook 6 spaces and took her queen. Marissa surveyed her lost piece. Then she continued the pieces she had taken. 1 pawn. Even with Renee coaching her on her moves, she was headed to defeat. I'm better at Candyland. Candyland? I would slaughter you, buddy boy. Her smile hurt that cut lip and forced her to emit a faint ouch. Does it hurt a lot? Renee asked. Only when you say something silly. And how's your nose? Sore, he answered. Renee pushed Marissa's pieces back to her side and said, let's play again. They played 6 games, and each one got easier for Marissa, who suspected that Renee was losing his pieces on purpose. They were going to start a 7th game when Marissa's father stepped into the den, smiling. Raiders won in overtime, 21-19. He hiked up his pants and asked, Who's winning here? Her mother then appeared from behind her father. You want to stay for dinner? I'm defrosting some tamales. It's very nice, he replied, but my mom expects me home for dinner. Marissa turned and saw that it was still daylight. Sunlight spilled in from the window. What's your last name again, Renee? Her father asked. Torres. He pinched his chin. Torres, Torres. I used to know Manuel Torres from the high school. Is that your father? No, he's Ben Torres. Marissa's father lowered his head and had the appearance of someone thinking deeply in a game. No, I don't know any Ben Torres. I know a Rebecca Torres, her mother cut in. She had brushed her hair and reddened her mouth with lipstick. Marissa thought, this is enough. We've got to bounce out of here. We're going to go for a walk, she said. Renee looked puzzled. Marissa raked the chess pieces into his backpack and fit the board in carefully. She peeked in and noticed a dog-eared copy of Romeo and Juliet. Don't be long, Marissa's mother sang sweetly. The two stood on the porch. Although sunlight still flickered off what leaves remained on the sycamore tree in the yard, Marissa shivered from the cold. But she hesitated over going back inside. Her parents would press her against the wall and begin to interrogate her. Just who was this Chauvelot? Renee rolled his bike off the porch and Marissa jumped down the stairs. She was sure that her parents were peeking from the front window. She turned and caught sight of them ducking behind the curtains. They're nice, Renee said. Marissa said nothing. You get on. She took the bike from Renee's grip. Me? He stabbed a finger at his chest. Yes, you. Renee hopped into the bar. The bike nearly tipped over, but Marissa gripped the handlebars, kicked a leg over the seat, and pushed off. Wobbly at first, then straightening off and picking up speed as their shadow pursued them along the black asphalt. My, you're strong, Renee said. Marissa had to laugh inside. My, you're strong. She had a boyfriend, and so what if he was a nerd? They rode to the public playground, which was gated closed on Sundays, and sat on the grass. Watch this. Renee got into push-up position and did 25 shaky push-ups. You're going to have some serious swells in a month. She clapped her hands and pulled off the piece of grass stuck to his chin. I like your parents, Renee said after he caught his breath. They seem so compatible. Marissa didn't want to discuss her parents. No, she wanted to hear about his secrets, anything. I have no secrets. I'm an open book. With the word book, she rifled through his backpacks and brought out his copy of Romeo and Juliet. You got to have a secret. Renee touched his chin and looked skyward dramatically. He then shivered once his gaze leveled and directed a soft kiss on her lips. I like that, purred Marissa, who had accepted to kiss with her eyes open. That was one of my secrets. That was the kind of kiss I used to plant on my pillow. You kissed your pillow? I slobbered all over it. He laughed with his hand over his mouth. After his giggling subsided, he opened the copy of Romeo and Juliet and said, let's practice. So they sang, out of tune. That fair for which love groaned for and would die, with tender Juliet matches now not fair. Now Romeo is beloved and loves again, alike bewitched by the charm of looks. They sang the long chorus 3 times, and below the 4th time, Renee brought out his recorder from his backpack. With music, Renee suggested. He licked his lips and began to play. I'm in love, Marissa told herself. Poetry and music. Her life had changed all because of Alicia and Roberto. If they hadn't got into the car accident, none of this would have happened. This was one of her secrets. Another was that she had liked Roberto a lot, but that was a long, long time ago. Aunt Sarah came over for dinner. She arrived lugging a bag of oranges from the tree in her yard. Marissa gave her aunt a kiss and pried the bag from her hands. That night they ate the tamales Marissa's mother had defrosted. Her mother couldn't help saying, a young man came by to see Maria today. Mom, Maria scolded. She felt her cheeks burn. But it's true, her mother remarked. Marissa's father shook his head at his wife, who grumbled, okay, I won't say anything. She parted her tamale and pretended to be hurt. They ate in silence for only a few minutes before Marissa said, he's a boy from school. We're in a play. Her aunt's eyes shone. That's nice. We're going to be in a performance at school. You should come and see it. I will. Her aunt reached for the basket filled with tortillas wrapped in a dish towel. What play, sweetheart? Marissa pinched up a glob of frijoles and a piece of tortilla and shoved the untidy portion into her mouth. She chewed and wondered whether she should tell them. They were all waiting for her answer. She swallowed, drank from the water glass, and answered, Romeo and Juliet. Oh, her mother squealed, how romantic. When Marissa's mother said she didn't have to go to work the next day, something about the office building being fumigated, Aunt Sarah suggested that her niece stay with her overnight. This was her mother. This was her. This way, her mother wouldn't have to get up early and drive across town. Marissa could wake up and walk the 3 blocks to Hamilton Magnet. That'll be fun, Marissa said, and ran to her room to get her things. When she snatched her cell phone from the chest of drawers, she saw that she had 2 messages. She pocketed the cell phone and went to the bathroom for her toothbrush and brush. Aunt Sarah didn't risk asking Renee whether he was a friend, or if their friendship had advanced to the level of boyfriend and girlfriend. She drove her Volvo station wagon with both hands on the wheel, and with her eyes flitting up to the rearview mirror every few seconds. She was a cautious driver. His name is Renee, Marissa breathed. That's a nice name. I knew a girl from school named Renee. They drove in silence for 2 blocks before her aunt said, I saw you had a lot of grass on your sweatshirt. We were sitting on the grass, Marissa relieved. The 2 kisses had the smile of the image of Renee playing the recorder. My mom is so embarrassing. Aunt Sarah chuckled. She is funny. Marissa reached into her front pocket and brought out her cell phone. She had 2 more messages. But he's your novio, que no? Novio. Marissa hadn't applied that Spanish language distinction. But yes, she answered her favorite aunt. He was her novio. And you're really going to be in this play, verdad? Her aunt braked as the light turned yellow. Yeah, but we don't have any lines. We just sing in the chorus. She shoved her cell phone back into her pocket. Just sing. Singing is everything. She gunned the engine when the light turned green. Aunt Sarah began to sing a Mexican song, and Marissa was lulled by the song of a young woman who loses her boyfriend to another girl. That won't happen to me, Marissa thought. Renee will always be mine. At Aunt Sarah's house, Marissa showered and then put her jeans and a t-shirt with the Simpsons on the front. In the steamy bathroom, she checked her messages. It's me, the first one said. Me was Alicia, asking why Marissa wanted to keep fighting Roberto. The second was from Alicia, too, saying she was sorry for the first phone call. Oh, God, Marissa moaned. Couldn't Alicia see that Roberto was no good? She checked the third message. It's me. It was Renee, who told her about a PBS program on television about volcanoes until his mother's voice, the voice was harsh, told him to get off the phone. The fourth message was Renee, too. He was singing a made-up tune for Good Night, Sleep Tight, Don't Let the Bed Bugs Bite. Marissa clicked off the phone, feeling happy. But she had to wonder about Renee's mother, a dragon by the sound of her voice. What's this? Was this his secret? She played back the last message of Renee singing, and then she joined her aunt in the living room for an evening of chess. Marissa was determined to learn a few moves to help improve her game.